This is the
Thank you.
NGO Committee on Aging in New York. We are beginning and recording this call. I turn it over to our chair, Bill Smith.
Thank you, Cynthia, and welcome to all of you that are online now, as well as those that will be joining us. We have an exciting program today, and it would not happen without the leadership of Robin Fenley, as well as Sandy Timmermann, who have worked hard to put this together. And we'll use this opportunity to, one, welcome you, but also update you on some of the activities of the NGO Committee on Aging. We have been incredibly busy, even prior to the open-ended working group. The first matter I'd like to bring up is that the open-ended working group did conclude its activities in New York at our last meeting and made recommendations to the General Assembly, and we're hoping that the General Assembly will take that matter up soon. There are a number of recommendations that were made, and including sending this work on to Geneva for the Human Rights Council to continue this work. The New York Committee on Aging will continue to support this activity and monitor some of the activities at the General Assembly. It's also been duly noted that the New York NGO Committee with the UN and New York have a lot of work to do yet. So the Strategic Development Goals, as well as the Summit of the Future, just to name a couple, and you'll probably hear more of that today. With regards to the chair and the executive committee, the one significant action that we took was to revise our goal to indicate that the open-ended working group was concluded and that this matter is now being referred to the General Assembly, as I indicated. We're waiting. You will be informed about more activity in this area as it moves along. I'm very pleased to see so many of you on the call today, and some more will be joining us. Even Angela Tu is with us from Hong Kong, who's visiting here in the States, and we welcome her. I think she gets the award for coming the furthest distance. But we welcome all of you to this meeting. I think what I'd like to do now is pass the presentation on to Ariana Eliza, who has done a great job in chairing our International Day of Older Persons. So take it away, Ariana.
Good morning. Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to Robin and the Programs Committee for organizing this meeting. I'm delighted to be here and report to all of you in regards to the International Day of Older Persons. On December 14, 1990, by Resolution 45-106, the United Nations General Assembly designated October 1st as the International Day of Older Persons. The day is marked annually around the world. This year, it will be commemorated on September 30th in Vienna, on October 1st in Geneva, and on October 7th in New York. The purpose of the International Day of Older Persons is to raise awareness of the challenges and opportunities of aging population around the world. The event gathers practitioners and international experts that present the latest research on subjects that address the status of older persons regarding health, financial security, poverty, empowerment, human rights, and other pertinent topics. In addition, ambassadors from United Nations, representatives from non-governmental organizations, community leaders, researchers, and policymakers attend United Nations International Day of Older Persons to make their voices heard and learn of best practices and policies that improve the lives and dignity of older persons. The event is organized by the NGO Committee on Aging in partnership with the United Nations Program on Aging unit at the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. This year marks the 34th anniversary of commemorations of the International Day of Older Persons. The International Day of Older Persons New York theme is Aging with Dignity, the importance of strengthening care and support system for older persons worldwide. It will be celebrated, as I mentioned earlier, in New York on October 7th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the ECOSOC chamber at the UN headquarters. Given the global demographic shift, the caregiving landscape is undergoing significant transformation, encompassing a wide range of needs for both paid and unpaid support in formal or informal settings. As the population ages, the demand for comprehensive healthcare, care, and social support has grown tremendously. The 2024 New York commemoration of International Day of Older Persons will bring together experts to discuss policies, legislation, and practices that strengthen care and support system for older persons. The objectives of this year's event are to emphasize the role of national policies and legislation, the role of the family and community to ensure full respect for the dignity, beliefs, needs, and privacy of older persons, and for the right to make decisions about their care and quality of their lives, as well as to foster the greater knowledge and awareness of the global shortage of care workers and the challenges in establishing comprehensive care and support system for older persons beyond the formal healthcare services, particularly in the context of population aging and the role of the family. We would like to highlight during this year the innovative initiatives providing quality care and support system for older persons, emphasizing the importance of comprehensive support services, particularly with older persons with conditions such as dementia, and to promote the need for specialized training and education for caregivers to address the diverse health needs of older persons and stress the importance of geriatric education. But in the meantime, as an NGO, our role is to advocate for the recognition of the diverse contribution of caregivers, from family members providing unpaid care to professionals offering specialized services, ensuring that the older person's rights are respected. But in the meantime, we are thinking to address the challenges faced by informal caregivers, especially women, and promote the policies that support them in balancing multiple responsibilities. This year's event will feature keynote remarks from New York City Commissioner on Aging, a first look of a preview clip from the upcoming documentary titled Caregiving by executive producer led by Bradley Cooper and his team, and interactive dialogue with Josh Carter, a representative of Rosalind Carter Institute of Caregiving. The panelists, we have a robust discussion, and the panelists will include Shireen Hussain, from London School of Global Public Health, whose research is focused on caregiving and care support system in Middle East countries. We'll have Elizabeth Helsner from SUNY Downstate and the Brooklyn Initiative to develop a geriatric education. We will have Kahir Lalji from the United Way, British Columbia in Canada, Peter Lloyd Sherlock from the University of East Anglia, whose research is focused in South America and in low and middle income countries, as well as from home, Beth Finkel from AARP, which will share her experience and the policies and the work that is happening in the United States. So as I mentioned, the New York's event will be held on October 7, Monday, October 7, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The registration is now open and will close on September 27. In addition of the other things that I mentioned, the event will host the launch of United Nations Postal Administration commemorative stamp in celebration of the UN International Day of Older Persons. Hope to see you all there. I'm
Bill,
sending
you're
the
on
mic
mute.
back to you, Robin.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's toss it over to Robin. Good. Thank you,
Okay.
Robin.
Yeah, thanks, Ariana. It's going to be exciting to have an entire IDLP International Day of Older Persons dedicated to caregiving. It's very timely. So great. Thank you for that work. Now we'd like to just introduce everybody to the chairs of our various subcommittees, for them to just say a few words about the work within that subcommittee, and certainly if there's any interest in joining, everybody is welcome. So let's actually start with Katie, if you wouldn't mind talking just a few words about the membership subcommittee. Katie Weiss.
There we go, sorry. Yes, with our membership subcommittee, our focus is really getting members to pay the dues, and I will talk briefly about that, but also to engage with our subcommittee, so you actually have some hands-on participation in the work that the committee is doing. And we have different topic areas and different subcommittees working on each topic area and activity area. And we are always looking for folks to sink their teeth in and give us a hand with that and just become more deeply embedded in the work of the committee. On dues, since we're in September and our membership year starts really in September, our dues are modest every year, $35 as annual dues and $15 for students. Anybody who pays their dues now is going to be considered an active dues paying member through 2025, so you get some bonus months. The reason we do this, as I'm sure all of you know, the NGO committee and the exec committee, we're all volunteers. We don't have any permanent paid staff, but we do have expenses for our online programs, the Zoom account and other online programs. We need to pay for meeting space. We need to pay for our website. So there are those operational things that we need to cover. And our dues are where we turn to for that. The International Day of Older Persons, we generally do special fundraising for that, but the day-to-day, making sure we can get our program meetings out to you, making sure that we can sponsor side events at the various UN conferences during the year. That's what we turn to our dues for. So I urge you to think about getting the dues paid now. I will also try to make sure that once you pay your dues, you will not get those nagging reminders through the rest of the year. So I don't know if that's a benefit or not. But if you want to pay the dues, you can go to our website, you can pay them online, or you can find the instructions for mailing in a check if you're more comfortable with that. And one of the places one can get involved in our committee activities is to give, I've got a couple of people who help me out in our outreach to members. And if anybody's interested in that sort of help in particular, reach out to us, and we always welcome extra hands and extra expertise in these subcommittees. So thank you, Robin.
Yep, that's great, Katie. Thank you. There's a question in the chat about how they can become a member. The website is we'll put it in there, but it's www.ngocoa-ny.org, and you'll have the information on joining there.
Perhaps someone can put that website into the chat. I'm working on my phone, so that's difficult for me. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Cynthia just jumped in there with that. Thank you. Okay. Next, actually, Maud, Bruce, would you mind talking about Older Women Subcommittee? You're on mute, as Cynthia had noted.
No, now Now you hear me, I hope.
Yes.
So my name is Amal Abou Rafeh, and I'm in charge of the subcommittee on older women. And we've heard from what was presented on the International Day of the Older Person, that older women is actually a very important part of the older persons. And we were speaking about the care sector, for instance. There are more older women than there are older men, and there are also more older women in a care situation than older men. And women tend to care for children, relatives, all their lives, and also work in the care sector, and end up in a far worse situation than older men usually. So it's very important that we highlight these issues, working on the working conditions of women throughout life, their health condition, violence against women, and also what happens to women when they are older and, for instance, widows. So we usually do a campaign at the end of the year, and we also this year we did a parallel event during CSW, flagging these issues. And of course, you're welcome to join this committee. We're very happy for more input because it is a very important issue. So you can either contact the NGO Committee on Aging, or you can send me an email on msabout@aol.com.
Okay, Maud, that's great. If you wouldn't mind putting the second email that you just gave into the chat, that would be great.
I will.
Okay, thank you so much. So actually, I'm going to jump right in now and talk about the program committee just briefly. So this is an example of one of the things that the program committee does, and it's to try and stay current with activities, topics that are of interest and of importance, not only here in the United States, but globally. I mean, that's what we're about. You might remember that we did our survey over this past year, and we actually have quite a few members who are from different parts of the world. And so it's important for us to have the input from individuals who are, wherever you are, because you may have knowledge about speakers or topics that are germane to your area, that it's important just for all of us to be aware of, and it informs our advocacy efforts. So just in a brief nutshell, that's what the program committee is about. You're more than welcome to join. Again, information is available at our website on the program committee. Okay, so at this point, Erica, so we have a committee called Global Alliances, and Christopher Hanway is the chair of it, but he has had a prior commitment for today. So with his permission, I've asked Erica Dar if she would give a brief overview, because prior to Christopher taking over, Erica was very involved in Global Alliances through her work at then AARP. So Erica, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a few words about that.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Yes, Chris sends his apologies that he's not able to be with us. So just in a nutshell, Chris is the chair of the subcommittee of Global Alliances, and the main purpose of the subcommittee is to build partnerships and network with disparate groups, so that even though people doing the advocacy with different organizations at the UN may not be focused on aging, that they are made aware of issues of aging. And the subcommittee works on intersectionality. So giving an example of, say, there's a constituency working on disabilities, the subcommittee would want to create an alliance with them where we would promote the issue of disabilities and older persons, and they would talk about our issues in their forum. So Chris is looking for any of you on this call or people you know that are looking to join his subcommittee, provide ideas, provide connections for how the work can proceed for our committee at the UN. If you have questions, I will put Chris's email in the chat and you can reach out to him directly. But we would love to have more members involved with our different subcommittees. So thank you.
That's great, Erica. Thanks very much. Martha Bile, would you mind giving us a brief overview of communications?
Yeah, yes. Okay, yes. The purpose of the communications subcommittee, we were organized about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, with the idea to get the word out more about what we do and what needs to be done to keep aging issues upper or at least included more in UN deliberations. And so that means strengthening our advocacy among all of you and among other people who work in the aging field or who have an interest in aging issues, international aging issues, and to let all of you know what we're doing and what we need more people to be doing. And so we have a couple of principal ways in which we try to get that message across, in addition to the regular mailings that you will get from our committee, from the Committee on Aging. And one is a quarterly newsletter. And if you're on our membership mailing list, you've been getting those. And they are focused, especially each quarter, on some upcoming activity or commission or at the UN. So, for example, our coming issue, which will go out approximately September 30th, a week before IDO, the International Day of Older Persons, will be focused on the theme of International Day this year, which is caregiving. And so we'll have some more in-depth issues discussion and background to prepare you for attending the IDOP. And the other avenue that we have been using somewhat but would like to grow is our position on social media. And we are looking for someone who would be interested in doing that. It's a very part-time job, but needs some consistency, and we support the person who will do that with content and sources of information. It takes about 3 or 4 hours a week on average. We pay $20 an hour, up to $5,000 if someone is able to do it that much. And so I will, as a kind of point person for getting information about people who might be interested in this job, I will put my email in the chat, and I would welcome any referrals, and I can answer questions too about what that job would imply.
That's great, Martha. Thank you. Our newsletter really gets a lot of mileage and a lot of positive feedback. So, any participation, input, even suggestions on topics, I know would be welcomed by the committee, the subcommittee.
That too, yes.
So I'm going to ask my my program partner, Sandy Timmermann, would you mind saying a few words? And I'm mindful of the time because we have Amal coming on at 10:30. Would you have say a few words about the intergenerational task force? Oh, mute. Wait, unmute.
mute. The usual comments. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Robin. Yes, I had the intergenerational task force for the Committee on Aging, and our role is to figure out ways to work effectively with younger people to let them be a part of our concerns about older people, finding common issues, getting them involved in advocating for us, and just in general trying to make a dent in the very heavily focused UN youth emphasis. We seem to be often forgotten in reports, and younger people have a very prominent role at the UN. I think there's goodwill, and we have to figure out entry points. We also have to involve some of our students who are in technology. So if you would like to join this effort, we have other committee members from our executive committee, and would love to have people join us. I'll put my name and email address into the chat. So thanks, Robin, and turn it back to you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. This actually might be putting Cynthia on. We have a couple minutes left. Cynthia, I don't know if you would be comfortable saying.
I just noticed that Amal is here, so I would suggest that she's on. So
Yeah.
I would suggest that after Amal finishes, we finish up with the Human Rights Subcommittee. And if Ramsey isn't on, I'll say something about the U.S. Task Force. But I think that I just admitted Amal a moment ago.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, so we'll pause. Francis, sorry about that. Hold your thoughts. And same Cynthia. Okay, so Amal, where are you? We are really delighted to have Amal Abou Rafeh, who is the Chief of Program on Aging at the UN, the Department of Economic and Social Affairs, otherwise known as DESA. She is coming to give us the update. Amal just has her finger on the pulse of pretty much everything global around aging. And so it is absolutely our pleasure to have her here. Amal, I am actually not seeing her.
No. I admitted her, but maybe, hold on, just give it a second.
Okay.
I'll just double check the participant list, because you never know what can happen.
Yeah, I don't see her. And then I saw a brief thing that she left.
Okay,
she left?
So maybe proceed with Francis, and then if I haven't, I'll have to readmit her, I guess. Oh, there she is. Wait, she just came on. Hold on. I just readmitted her. She's joining from the waiting room. Okay.
Oh, Francis, your video works.
Amal, are you there?
Yes, hello everyone.
Okay.
There we go.
Excellent. There you go. Maybe you can back up and tell her where we are.
Okay, Amal, we were doing our introduction of our subcommittees, and so we are going to pause with Francis and Human Rights and turn it over to you. And I was just saying, we're just so excited. I mean, you talk about having a friend at the UN who's all about aging. Here's Amal. This is our friend. So we are delighted to have you here. Can't wait to hear what all of the updates are, especially from where you sit. So we'll just turn it over to you, and the rest of the time is all you, Amal. And hopefully if we get at the end, maybe we'll get back to you, Francis, and potentially Cynthia for other human rights issues.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robin. I really appreciate the invitation to join you all today. I had joined a little earlier and saw you were still in your discussions, so I stepped out and then stepped back in. So apologies for that. I think this is a great time for us to meet and catch up because it is a beginning of a new cycle in the General Assembly, which goes on for a whole year. But it's also an opportunity that we're using, and I guess this is where Frances, when she updates you on the human rights, that we've sort of wrapped up in New York a certain segment of our work. And our team is revisiting, reassessing, how do we move forward? And my ask is going to be twofold today of this constituency. One is to the NGO Committee on Aging, and one is to the members that make up the NGO Committee on Aging. And we're seeing these as two different sort of entry points to the work that's happening with the UN. We very much appreciate the longstanding partnership we have with the NGO Committee on Aging, and I want to thank you, Robin as Vice Chair and Bill as Chair, for the great support and work and engagement that we've had with you. We don't take it for granted. But I do believe that if you want to take anything out of the messages that I'm going to give you today, it's we need you to show up as the individual ECOSOC accredited organizations at the United Nations. And I'm going to explain why. So we pretty much know in our team exactly where we're heading in the next 4 years. We have a pretty solid idea what those things will look like. I'm going to be happy to prepare this. We're doing it for our team. So Robin and Bill, I'll share it with you as well. And I ask that feel free to share it with the membership of what these key steps are, these key milestones that are coming ahead. And I'm thinking of milestones because these are the opportunities where member states, where delegations want to hear from NGOs that are accredited to ECOSOC. What is it that you have to say about what these governments are meeting and discussing? And we're expanding our work, and I'll get to that also in a moment. So the big lesson that we've learned here is really from the Summit of the Future, which we think that, you know, member states really fell short in recognizing that the world is aging rapidly and big changes are coming in less developed regions where countries have not had the luxury to put in place the right institutional, policy, legal measures, and will not have the luxury of time that North America and Europe had in preparing for their aging population. That's a problem, you know. The not taking into account this reality is a problem. Not population aging, because we know for sure that if member states take the appropriate measures, the appropriate, you know, policies and legislation, then the track which we're on right now that we see as unequal aging into the future will change. It's not inevitable. Population aging is, but its impact on the economy, on society is not. And the Summit of the Future has missed that. Now, I gotta tell you, Robin, a lot of people are asking me, oh, Amal, with the closure of the open-ended working group, you guys must be relaxing, taking it easy. It hasn't been crazier. I've been asked by my team and I gave in. Tomorrow I'm taking the day off because they could see that we're getting really overwhelmed. And the reason for it is we were able to get some entry points into the Summit of the Future, not how we would have liked to have done, of course, but the working group did take up, I would say, almost half of our time in the year. But the formalization of the United Nations Interagency Group on Aging will be delivering on, let me get the date here, on the afternoon of the 23rd of September during the high-level segment in the plenary, a statement on what the UN system sees of how member states delivered or did not deliver for older persons. So it's the Universal Postal Union, which is a new member of this interagency group, that will be delivering that statement. And we've prepared a draft, the two co-chairs. We've just shared it with the membership for their input, and I'll be happy to share it with all of you as well, so you could get a sense of what it is that we're seeing. And really, we're calling out deep concern that the pact, while it had almost 30 references to youth, and we think that's very important, but it had only one reference to older persons. And we worry about pitting one generation against the other when, you know, the spirit of the pact is supposed to be intergenerational solidarity. So we don't see that there. Also, there will be 3 side events that have taken place. I'm very proud of DESA colleagues and WHO colleagues. Out of 400 applicants, we were able to get 3 side events. 2 will be virtual. One taking place, we will share all that information. They'll come out soon. We're just finalizing because everything's last minute. One will be on the life course approach. One will be on intergenerational solidarity. And one is organized by all the regional commissions with the New York office of the regional commissions. It would be in person, so I guess it's much smaller in scale, but more impactful because it's hosted at the permanent mission of Chile. And I want to thank your Vice Chair, Robin Fenley, for accepting the invitation from the organizers to address older persons and this constituency. So these are the entry points that we're having into this summit. And I think it gives us an indication of, imagine what we can do if we start planning properly. And here, I want you all to put in, and we will share those details with you, but it's going to be in November in 2025. There's going to be the 2nd World Summit on Social Development that's going to be in November in Doha, in Qatar. And because fundraising takes time to be able to travel, I think you should have it on your radar to make sure that ECOSOC accredited members of this CoA are ready to sign up when signing up is open, and we will stay in touch with that to actually go there and inscribe so that you get to speak and represent the constituency at that meeting. The other thing is that the modalities resolution is out. We know that there will be 2 main roundtables, and we want to infiltrate those roundtables. So one is on the 3 pillars of the Copenhagen Declaration. They're basically poverty, decent work, and sorry, I forgot the 3rd one off the top of my mind, but it's stuff that we've already talked about and have done a lot of work on. So there's nothing new in terms of content. It's just pushing that envelope, showing up, being there, making the statement, and also engaging with member states here, with the co-facilitators specifically. And I think they are Belgium and Morocco is a huge supporter to this constituency. You know Magda from the Open-Ended Working Group on Aging, and Magda now is the Deputy Permanent Representative. So I think, these meetings way ahead of time to say, listen, member states have failed us in the Summit of the Future. The least you guys can do is make up for it when you recommit to social development. So that's one that's coming up in November that our team is stepping up to to provide, strong support to within the UN system directly, because it just so happens that our division will be the secretariat, not our team, but other colleagues. Also we're encouraging inputs through the UN Interagency Group on Aging. So we will engage the entire UN system on this. And we're calling for setting up mechanisms to engage with the stakeholders, and you would be one of the stakeholders, but I'm making it very clear that no one is interested in a talk shop. If you guys are going to bother to take the time to engage with this, that you are expecting that your engagement lands somewhere. And this is the message that we're telling our new director, that don't come up with just, allowing the constituency to make statements. They want to see that these statements are going to impact the outcome. And the outcome of that summit is a political declaration that's going to be negotiated. So that's one thing that should be on your radar. What does it mean, practically speaking? That there will be calls for maybe, I don't know, informal consultations, meetings. The membership has to be ready to show up for that. And I'm going to be very candid. And the work has been on the shoulders of a handful of ECOSOC accredited NGOs. And they've done an amazing job carrying through all the achievements that we've gotten to until today. But member states need to see more names. I'm pretty sure there are many more accredited NGOs out there. And I think it's the responsibility of the Global Coalition on Aging to make sure that those names pop up, and maybe even on a rotational basis, on an expertise basis. That's up to you how you want to organize internally. But we really need to see a heck of a lot more accredited NGOs engage on this. Anything that is needed from our end, any questions, and believe me, there are no silly questions. You should see how we're struggling with the Summit of the Future, because apparently no one but our team landed a speaking slot and side events. So in the social division department. So we're very pleased about that. But any questions should go to aging@un.org, aging with an E. I'm going to put it in the chat. And there are colleagues that are very diligent, that are checking those emails, and we will get back to you. Please understand that part of our mandate, part of our responsibility is to provide technical support to you so that you could do your advocacy work. We've done tons and loads of research, writing, data. We even now can tap into various UN systems. Don't let the burden of preparing what is it that you want to say weigh you down or make you reconsider showing up as individual ECOSOC accredited NGOs to those meetings and those discussions. Please lean into us. And believe me, if everything that we send you is not what you want to say, drop it. We're totally okay with that. We don't know what you want to say. We don't want to assume what is it that you want to say, but we will provide you with the latest information, and feel free to play around with it however, which way that you want. We do the same with member states as well. This is part of our job. Please lean into us and use it. There's an opportunity to use this. There's a focal point in our team fully dedicated to address your issues. So use those services that will be available to you. In terms of, again, speaking of milestones, for the human rights of older persons, because this has been an area where it's been much easier for NGOs to engage with. And I think because the target is clear, which is a convention. So when you have that clear target, it's easier to sort of build momentum and advocacy towards it. It is our understanding, as well as our colleagues at OEWGA, both in Geneva and in New York, that at this moment in time, there is no intergovernmental process towards a convention in New York. And that all the work that has been done in the past years was actually to take this work to where it should be discussed, which is the Human Rights Council in Geneva. So there should be a shift to whatever extent that is possible for the convention to move to Geneva. Now, what will happen in New York, we will continue to promote the importance of the human rights of older persons, because that is part of following up to the Second World Assembly on Aging, the outcomes of which are a political declaration and the Madrid Plan of Action on Aging. And we really want to work, and I'm borrowing here from my dear friend Andrew Burns, that we want to infuse our work on MIPA, infuse the declaration into that, because the political declaration has a lot of strong language on the human rights of older persons. So that work will continue in New York, but please understand that the direct pathway, and my view that we should be laser focused on that, should be to land something concrete in the Human Rights Council, because as it stands, there isn't that landing yet, that landing that Francis always asked me about. We need to keep a strong eye on that and make sure that we don't deviate from that main cause over there. And we believe that when we raise the profile of population aging, older persons, and their human rights in New York, it elevates all of that work. And we think that that would also support landing somewhere in the Human Rights Council to work towards an international legal instrument. So having said that, you would want to revisit, and I'm not saying we have the answers, we're also revisiting what would we say in the context in New York that supports that effort. And for example, I would say if I'm speaking in the Economic and Social Council in ECOSOC, like in CSOC-D or the Population Commission, or, you know, women, the Commission on the Status of Women, I would say that, yes, you know, we need economic and social policies, but these policies have to be informed by international normative standards so that the basic human rights are secured, are ensured. It matters. And those policies have to be informed by those standards so that it doesn't matter where you're born or where you live or where you end up growing old. As a human being, you should be able to exercise your human rights fully. So those policies look very different across societies. And how society thinks of older persons varies greatly. And because ageism is so prevalent, this issue specifically, because the worth of a human being diminishes, really, it does, as they move further into their older age. We can't trust that policies alone will naturally fix it. We can't trust that families alone will naturally fix it. I just had a very difficult conversation with my mom the past few days. There's a distant family member in her original home country, which is a village in the mountains, who passed away, an older woman in her 80s, lived alone, and was experiencing some kind of mental health issues. Family members were trying their best to check in on her, and she was found 2 days later in a ditch outside the building. She fell off the balcony. Took 2 days in a community that reveres older persons and family and all of that, a very tight-knit network of community. 2 days to find the body of that older woman. And the saddest part is, at her funeral, the word was spread around that she died in her home with the Holy Book in her hands. She was reading the Holy Book and she passed away like that. That makes it worse for me, because there's a guilt element there in that community, that they did not live up to what that older woman deserved as a human being in her older age, a woman who was very active in the Red Cross and gave so much to this community. And that covering up is concerning. So there's a lot of work that has to be done that should be embedded in basic human rights. And it's making those links that reminds member states that it's wonderful that you're doing policies. It's amazing when the family is able to be there to provide the support, but that support has to be what that older person wants. And there has to be, you know, human rights that the governments commit to ensure that things like this don't happen. So that's on the human rights front. In terms of the Madrid Plan of Action on Aging, it is not perfect. We know that. And our team has been researching, as well as other colleagues in regional commissions, you know, the history of our work on this, because we are about to start a new cycle of reviewing how well are member states doing implementing this plan of action. We're going to start this 5th cycle of doing that. MIPA is not perfect. It has really great things, and it has things that need work in the text itself, but also in its implementation. So part of the things that I've been trying to find out from regional commissions are, who are the focal points on aging in your regions? Are you engaged with them all the time? Do they just come in the cycle where they're supposed to fill in the questionnaire and then come out of it? And the things we're finding, you know, require a lot of work. For example, in one of the regions, ESCWA, there is no bottom-up approach to the review and appraisal process. It is really just the governments that fill out the answers and give the inputs, and that's it. The only time where civil society do come in is when the regional commission holds their regional meeting. But by that time, the national reports would have been submitted. So we see here where the opportunity is that we need to step in to make sure that MIPA is implemented and monitored in the spirit and the way member states intended it, which is a true, full, equal participation by older persons in that process. So it is not perfect. The review and appraisal is not perfect, but it is massive, meaning that there are tons of workshops, advisory missions to the governments that the UN undertakes, meetings, regional meetings, national reports, outcome documents at the regional level. 3 out of the 5 that came out were negotiated, and 2 of those were negotiated at a ministerial level. And there are regional declarations that are out there as well. I mean, those are tools that could be used to promote older persons in the work that is happening in New York. And we're working on tapping into them. And please lean into us to support you as well in that regard. For example, if you're going to go talk to Morocco and their capacity as co-facilitator for the upcoming summit in Qatar, let us provide you with, what did Morocco submit in their national report on the review and appraisal? You know, what kind of political declaration is that region following? There are 2. There's the African element and there's the Arab element, you know. So that when you go in, you say, listen, your minister, your government has already committed to 1, 2, 3, and we would like this to be translated here as well. So those kinds of discussions and actions are needed in that area. And for the review and appraisal next year at the Commission for Social Development, member states are going to negotiate the modalities of this. This is pretty much standard. It's my understanding that Qatar will be facilitating this negotiation of that resolution. I have to express concern that the Commission's days have been shortened by this bureau. I hope it does not set precedent, but for all intents and purposes, it means that negotiations will have to take place prior to the actual Commission. So we're talking about January. And I think in December, everybody will be out, which means you have to prepare in November who you're going to be talking to in terms of member states when they negotiate in January. Prepare yourselves in November so that in January, you know which NGOs will go out and who they'll speak to get the text that you'd like to get in that modalities resolution. For us, we think that the lessons that have been learned is that, you know, and I have thumbs up from all the regional commissions to do this, but I have to tell you, I don't know if our leadership will allow that language, but in our draft, we think that the world really, it's about time that the world meets to only discuss population aging and older persons once more, because we're failing to mainstream it everywhere. We think that it's time to get the world together to really just focus on that. There's a word that goes around in the UN hallways, it's called summititis, because there are so many summits out there, and everybody's apparently has an inflammation because of that. But we do think that that might be something that should be brought up to the attention of member states if there's an appetite to do that. And I think ideally it should be in a less developed region, maybe somewhere, I don't know, we'll have to explore if there's any appetite or interest with that from the regional commissions, but the SCAP region should be a good one because the numbers there and the appetite from member states is higher than other regions. So 2025 will be the modalities. 2026 is when governments will start doing their review and appraisal. And this is where the networks at the national level should start to kick in to say, listen, we want to be part of this exercise. And here is our input on this. 2027 will be the regional review. It's also going to be the year of the 25th commemoration of the Second World Assembly on Aging. I think we got it wrong at the 20th commemoration because there was no resolution on this. So member states have decided that in the upcoming Commission on Social Development, they're going to discuss what this anniversary means. We're hoping that they lock in the date of 2027 because that's the 25th anniversary, chronologically speaking. But I think that would mean that there should be a standalone resolution in the General Assembly about that commemoration. And we have examples of how that would be done. And this would say in the opening, the SG will deliver remarks, the PGA will deliver remarks, the president of ECOSOC will deliver remarks. There will be a plenary, there will be this, discussed, that discussed. It would be set out in a standalone one-pager resolution to say that we want to have maybe a high-level meeting that year in New York to commemorate the 25th anniversary. What this will give us is exposure to deliver the messages that the constituency wants to deliver on that day. But also, that's the year 2027 where all the regional commissions are going to have their regional meetings. So that means that in every region, they're also going to be commemorating the 25th anniversary of the Second World Assembly on Aging. So 2027, we'll probably have 5 commemorations of the Second World Assembly on Aging at the regional levels. And hopefully, if there is an appetite from member state, this is member state driven, we would like to see Secretariat a standalone resolution in 2026 calling for a high-level meeting in the GA to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Second World Assembly on Aging with modalities of what that would look like. And then 2028 is going to be the global review, where that takes place in New York. All we got was one high-level meeting, 3 hours to discuss this. And last time we got one older person to speak at the opening. And if I may remind everyone, that older person was the only one who got an applause from the audience, because Francis spoke to all generations about the reality of what their future will look like as well. And it resonated with everyone. So we're hoping to do that, but also really push member states in the modalities. And you will see our report will come out. We'll share it with you. Hopefully that will give you some tools on what is it you're going to ask these delegates to negotiate in January, early February, that we're going to want definitely more than one high-level panel, maybe an entire day We don't only want member states to sit there and talk about what the review looked like. Maybe we want a multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral panel to take place. So we're thinking with the regional commissions what that would look like and what the ask would be, and hopefully to see some of that language in the modalities resolution. So that's what's coming in terms of big milestones. Also, we want to see individual ECOSOC accredited NGOs show up to the different commissions that are taking place. For example, CSW, and we will keep you posted on our work behind the scenes, but I'm trying this time to work with the Bureau of CSW to have older women as a priority theme for the years that follow. We're aiming high, I know, but this is the time to do this, right? So imagine if that works, all the 4,000 people that come into CSW the year after will have to address the issue of older women. So that would be a huge win. So we're trying to work on things like that. So this means that we need to continue to collaborate together so that you know what we're thinking of. And then you decide how you want to engage. If that means holding meetings to brief, right before a commission takes place, we're happy to do that. If you'd like to do it bilaterally, we're happy to do that. But again, I want to make sure that my message is clear. We want to see more and more ECOSOC accredited NGOs step up and show up to deliver statements in New York. You're in New York or in the vicinity of New York, you are accredited. This is a big thing, believe me. And now with the working group closed, there are many, many, many NGOs, 150 plus, that don't have ECOSOC accreditation, that used to come to the UN that will not be able to do that anymore. So this puts additional burden on you, those who are accredited, to step up and show up, be in the rooms, and deliver those statements. So, and we're here to support you whatever which way that you see is necessary. And the final thing, and I know, sorry, Robin, I took a lot of time here, is that, and I know there have been efforts in this regard, but maybe they need to be more, well, the term we're using in the UN, because I'm not just preaching, we're doing this exercise internally. We want to scale up and systemize our work so that if I move somewhere else or Julia moves somewhere else, it wouldn't matter, because there would be a system in place where this kind of collaboration continues, and we want to upscale it. So it's no longer like individual initiatives, but something that's routine, like a machine that keeps going on its own. So we would like to see that, and I know it's a big ask of the leadership of this NGO committee, but you have to lean into your members and set up a system where they can go ahead and engage, because member states will not see NGO committee on aging, right? Because the committee in itself is not accredited. They're going to see individual NGOs. And if they only see, I don't want to throw names, but NGO A, NGO B, NGO C, NGO D, and that's it. In their mind, that's all that's out there. And we know that's not all that's out there. So it's part of your responsibility to make sure that you hit the mark in showing that, no, we have a much bigger constituency here, and they care, and they're going to show up to deliver those statements. So in doing that, you would also want to continue your efforts in collaborating with other NGO committees, which I already know that this work has been underway for quite a while now. But within that, I would caution again, and this is, our view as the Program on Aging, that in dealing with any other constituency, whether be it persons with disabilities, women, indigenous, it's gotta be the older persons in that community that are delivering statements on older persons. Their self-representation is a must. And that's possible in those areas. And you're going to really want to make good friends with the committee that has to do with social development, because there will be at the forefront of the work on the upcoming summit in 2025. But what we would also like to see is when you deal with the youth constituency, because youth have not lived yet the experience of older age, they cannot represent that experience. Think of it this way: going to a doctor's appointment with your sister, your brother, your daughter, whatever, parent. They're the ones who are sick. You're accompanying them there. If the doctor asks, how are you feeling? You know how they feel because you saw them, you heard them, but only they could speak to how they feel. So if young people, they deal with their grandparents, with their parents, they may have some ideas. That is wonderful. That's part of intergenerational solidarity, and it's there. But they cannot replace this constituency. They cannot speak to older age because they have not yet experienced what that is. And I saw on Instagram the other day, an older comedian was hilarious, who said that, older age don't get to rehearse age and being old. You just show up and one day you're like, oh my God, I'm an older person. You don't get the chance to practice or rehearse in life. So it's only this constituency that will be able to speak, their truth. So please, keep that in mind in all the interactions that you will have with the younger generations. And I think the best approach is to ask them to do two things. Number one, when they speak about the issues that matter to them, we have to push their thinking. What do these issues mean against a backdrop of a world that is aging? Are they still the same issues? Or do they want to tweak their messages? Is it going to be different? And how is it going to be different? So the world around them is going to change. What does that mean on the issues that matter to them? That's one thing. The other thing is, and this is a really hard one, but have them think about what their future will look like. Everything we do in the UN is person-centered, but somehow everyone's missing the mark on, these young people, the children, the youth. Yes, they're going to live well into the future, but not as young people. They're going to grow into adults and into older persons. And our projections show, speaking of future generations as an example, if you look at the year 2050, which is in the future, and future generations are understood as those who have not yet been born. So you look at those that are expected to be born, whoever will be born in the year 2050, and you look at the projections of what their life expectancy is, and you do the calculations, you will see that anyone born in the future, in 2050, in the more developed regions of the world, is projected to live more than twice of their life in their older age in comparison to their youth age. I mean, if you're just calculating where you want to invest, where you'll be spending most of your time, more than double of the time is going to be spent in older age than in youth. And if you think this is just a developed region issue, no, because in the less developed region, it's almost half of the time of people born in 2050 are projected to live in their older age versus their younger age. So youth better start thinking about that, because their governments aren't. We know that older persons today, if there's no change in policy, are better off than these future generations of older persons. So for me, that would be the approach, rather than them speaking about older persons, because they can't. I'm so sorry. It's just the reality of life. You gotta live in older age to be able to speak about it. And that's why for us, it's very important that the constituency says what matters to them. Brings me back to my original message to wrap up, that lean into us. We will provide you the technical support talking point statements, data, research, you name it. We've done it all. We have enough that we're proud of, that we're using to carve how the UN thinks about this issue. But if you look at it and you're like, nope, that's not what I want to say, drop it and say what it is that you want to say. And I think bringing in human stories makes such a big difference. And it's a tall order and it's difficult, I know, but you know, no one really wants to talk about their old age when you look at these governments. I mean, for God's sake, even the majority of the ambassadors and senior staff at the UN are older persons themselves, but don't recognize themselves as older persons. A few days ago, I was on a roundtable on travel and healthy aging with a new member of the Interagency Group on Aging, UN Tourism. We have a focal point on aging there. And when we spoke with the private sector, they were telling us that they're struggling with slogans because nobody wants to be seen as older, elder, aging. No, you know, they're using the word mature, and that's not even working well. There's a lot of self-directed ageism happening, and that's a huge obstacle. So it's so important for us not to make assumptions about what older persons want or think that's important. We're counting on you to deliver that message. I'm so sorry. I know there's a lot happening. Please don't worry. We will be sending all those details because we're doing that exercise internally. We will share it with Bill and Robin, and we will ask them to circulate it with all of you so that you know. But you know, you need to show up. The older people around the world, and I know we have it good, you know, in New York, in Canada, in the US, as older persons, but believe me, there's a lot of suffering happening out there. You're volunteering, and I'm grateful to it, but let's put your time where we're having the strongest hits, the strongest impact, and we're here to support you as always. So thank you so much, Robin. Thank you so much, Bill. And thank you all for lending me your ears.
Amal, awesome. I'm like speechless. There is so much that you guys are doing, so many excellent ideas for us. You know, as the committee, just thinking about our own leadership, where we should be going, moving forward to have that impact, as you're saying, to have our work land somewhere. That's awesome. It's overwhelming, frankly, but awesome nonetheless. So we're going to open this up to comments or questions, and I know Erica has a question. Jump in.
Yeah, thank you, Robin and Amal. I mean, just gobsmacked by all the work that your group is doing, and also your vision. And I think just to comment on your last thematic on the intergenerational with youth, you know, we've been struggling with that issue of how do we get them to realize that it is not an us against them, and it's not these two camps of the other, right? Older persons versus youth. And I think your last point about, you know, that as we celebrate longevity and people living longer, what are going to be the circumstances of those people living longer? I think that is very impactful when you look at policies. How is it going to impact health? How is it going to impact housing? How is it going to impact workforce? If we come up with some kind of concrete, as you live longer, you are going to have twice your life spent in older age. What is that quality of life? What is that productivity of life? I think those are really key and may resonate. I can do a test run with my kids. I encourage everybody to do it in their networks and see the reactions, because people are not thinking about that. They all want their parents to live longer, but under what circumstances? Or grandparents to live longer, but what does that actually mean? And a question for you, Amal. You talked about wanting another summit that's focused on aging, like a high-level meeting. How is that different? I know this now is economic and social. How is that different from the recommendation that was just passed in the GA on a high-level meeting, right, in 2025, is it? I'm not really clear. How would that, I mean, we're all strapped for resources, we're all strapped for time, we're all funding, and you did say people are like kind of zoned out of too many summits. So how do you see the two working or not working, and what is the difference? Thank you.
Robin, should I step in? And yeah, thank you. So thank you so much, Erica. Yeah, well, you kind of hit the point on what we're actually doing within the UN Interagency Group on Aging. So right now we have a terms of reference that's set up. We have an outline of an exploratory paper whereby we're going to be mapping what are the gaps and what are the assets to upscale and systemize the mainstreaming of, and this is the term that the group agreed to, mainstreaming population aging, comma, older persons, comma, and their human rights, so that we cover all these aspects into the UN system at all levels. And I am pushing the group to think about 4 different entry areas, if I recall them. The first is in the institutional setting within the UN. For example, I don't know, we're even going to throw in like, there is no UN entity on older persons. You know what I mean? Everything that's institutionally set up. The second thing is that the policy, where are the gaps and assets in terms of policy implications? And I want to thank Frances. She flagged this, and I heard her once talking about it, that there are a lot of requests and a lot of resolutions to a lot of UN and agencies specifically to work on something related to older persons. But, you know, do they know about it? Do they care about it? Like, what's happening there with all these resolutions that exist? And, you know, where are the gaps? Where are the assets? So institutional policy. The third is funding and capacity building. How many trust funds are out there? Is money coming into those? What kind of training is made available? And I really think we should have a mandatory, something that works towards a mandatory training for all the UN system on understanding the basics around population aging, older persons, and their human rights, so that when they work on whatever they work on, they know the do's and don'ts in that area. Actually, I'm the focal point. I don't know why I volunteered, but there's something called UN 2.0. It's an initiative by USG Guy Ryder about the future of the UN and how we're going to be agile and dynamic and I don't know what. And in one of the questionnaires I received, because I volunteered under strategic foresight, is a question to all the UN system that says, you know, we're supposed to answer a question. I am hiring young people to make sure that my team is innovative. That's a question in the UN system. So I refused to answer it. You're supposed to say yes or no, or I don't know. And I wrote back to our Undersecretary General's office, who confirmed to me that they will include this in the submission to the Executive Office of the Secretary General, that statement is ageist. I'm sorry, you're assuming that a younger person is capable of being more innovative than an older person. And I gave some examples of why this is ageist. And I said, you are violating texts that member states agreed to 20 years ago. You're violating the General Assembly with things like that. So there's a lot of stuff to be addressed there. I also suggested that the internships at the UN be open to older persons so that they could come in as interns. And it's not just limited to youth. So we're trying internally to work on these things. So this is capacity building and funding. And the fourth area, so institutional policy, funding, capacity building, the fourth area is awareness and communication, something along those lines. So part of the things that we're going to do, Erica, one of the first steps of the phase approach is common messages. And thank you for this idea of these key messages that we would want to prepare with the UN system and have them to break it down. And this is, I like this one. If I live longer, you know, what's going to be the impact on my longer life? So yeah, thank you for that. And those will come in handy to you all as well, you know, once they start to take shape. Which brings me also to point out to Robin and Bill that if there's anything that's happening where you need the committee needs access to UNDP or UN Women or something, we have the contacts to do that. But again, a reminder is nobody in the UN system understands what NGO Committee on Aging is. Think about it more as a facilitator, as a vehicle to push your own accredited NGO members to participate. The same thing for the Interagency Group on Aging. That statement that will be delivered on the 23rd in the afternoon at the summit, it's not going to say Interagency Group on Aging. It's going to say Universal Postal Union. It's the accredited member that will be speaking. That member will say, I am delivering a statement on behalf of the Interagency. So that's how I see also, and of course, we're in your hands. It is your committee. But we see it as that tool, like we are the tool for our members, you are for your members. The second question is what we're talking, these meetings, high-level meetings. I brought up 3 meetings. So just to clarify them, and the first one is in the resolution that was adopted in the General Assembly plenary in August. Member states called on the President of the General Assembly to hold a high-level meeting in the 79th session to discuss, and I can't remember the details, but it's basically exchanging views on the recommendations in Decision 14.1 that had 11 options of where do we go to close the gaps on the human rights of older persons, and one of them is the international legal instrument. The PGA for the 79th session is Cameroon. So it has to be Cameroon PGA that will call for this high-level meeting. It'll be 3 hours, and it can take any place from the beginning of this 79th session, which is now in September, up until the end of August next year. From what I'm hearing, talking to some delegates, is that they see it as really just a meeting where member states, the constituency come in, share their views, exchange experiences, and walk out. That's all it's meant to be. It has no impact, as I understand it, as of now, on the pathway towards a convention. I personally would like to see it take place later in the year of the 79th session to allow the Human Rights Council to move. I don't want them linked where the Human Rights Council thinks that we have to wait for this high-level meeting before we make a move. And I don't think there is a misunderstanding there. So this is this high-level meeting. Yes, you will want to participate in it, but I don't see it having an impact other than driving through the messages again. That's one. The second one, high-level meeting that I talked about, also I'm hoping that it would be launched by the PGA, is the 25th commemoration of the Second World Assembly on Aging. And this would have to take place in the year 2027, okay? And I would like to see a standalone resolution for it that spells it out. This will be sort of ceremonial, you know, and bringing the Secretary General in, putting us on the agenda, you know, bringing member states to meet up again. It would be an opportunity to see where member states are in Geneva and what kind of messaging we want to use in New York, who knows. But we would want that event to happen in New York. This is just an idea. Of course, we're in the hands of member states, but we're drumming up 25th anniversary. Please make sure when you mention 25th anniversary, it's not of MIPA, it's of the Second World Assembly on Aging. MIPA is one of 2 outcome documents of that assembly, the first being a political declaration. Actually, MIPA is annexed to the political declaration. So a declaration is a very powerful thing. Look at this new summit they want to hold in Qatar in November. The outcome is a political declaration. So we have one. We hardly mention it. And maybe because the document, when you open MIPA, it says MIPA and there's a political declaration first, but they should be separated. And that's on my to-do list. We need to even visually separate both of them, right? So that's the second high-level meeting that doesn't exist, but we're entertaining the idea of, right? The third isn't a high-level meeting by the president of the GA in New York. It's not a 3-hour meeting in New York. It's actually, trying to call for a third World Assembly on Aging. And that one is a whole different ballgame. It would be like maybe 3 days. We would like it to be hosted outside New York in a country in the less developed regions. So you would need a host country, and it would require 2 years of preparation. We're talking something really big here. And to be very clear, there's no appetite for this. No one has expressed interest in this. But I was thinking, what the heck? If there's summititis, then why aren't we throwing this into the bag and have member states discuss and see where it takes us? But we really do believe on a technical level that many issues have to be revisited, strengthened, more of the political declarations, human rights language infused into an updated plan, and some issues that were not addressed at the time should be addressed again, and really to get the full attention of the General Assembly on this issue one more time. So yeah, those are the 3 different ideas that came up.
Very, very helpful. And I'm so glad that you put in the URL for questions, because I think as we all begin to sift through the information you've provided, there's going to be a lot more questions that are going to be coming out of this, and certainly moving forward. I mean, I love the timeline that you have put out there, as well as, again, because we've had so much interest in intergenerational work in terms of those questions to ask youth. I think that's a question. These are questions for us to ask ourselves, and to ensure you talk about infusing into our conversation. So this was, just to echo what Erica is saying. This was just substantive. It was strategic. So very helpful. Unfortunately, we're at the end of time, and boy, would this be a key, perfect time to move into our human rights subcommittees and the U.S. Task Force on Human Rights. So, because it is so interconnected. Next program meeting, perhaps we can start with these 2 groups, to give them some time. And at this point, thank you all for coming. I so appreciate everybody coming. No apologies, Amal, you could speak forever. It's all good. Sandy, would you like to take us home and close this out?
Yes, just to try to summarize, I think, first of all, there were a few key messages, but I suggest listening to this recording again. I was overwhelmed by the detail and what we need to learn. And I would suggest also getting this out to people who are not here, because I picked up a few messages. No rest after the convention, we felt was really our main focus, but now we've got more work to do. And we have to really get our act together. And so these are the things I picked up, 2 main things before we close. One is to get ECOSOC accredited NGOs to show up at the UN events. We have to do that. There are a few NGOs, as Amal said, that are there all the time, but we represent a number of ECOSOC accredited NGOs, and we have to figure out a way to enlist them. Maybe that's something that should be on the agenda. And then the second thing, Amal offered about 3 times, use her office for technical support. Talking points, suggestions, main messages. I think those 2 were the main things that I picked up, and so many more. I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We need to infiltrate things that are going on. I loved her idea about CSW and really making older women a theme, but let's listen again to this tape and revisit this often, because I sensed urgency with them all in a way that I never have before, and it's our time. So let's get to work. And Robin, unless there's something else to say, should I close the meeting? We're at 11:30.
Please do. Great job.
Thank you so much, everybody. See you next time.